Hello, welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. I was going through an old St. Louis Cardinals baseball program from 1982 that I'm scanning. I'm posting all the programs on a website called Programs and Pamphlets Galore, and ran across some pictures of the owners of the St. Louis Cardinals, August Busch Jr. at the time, and his son August Busch III. There's now an August Busch V. Anyway, I was going to go ahead and do a little summary on the history of the Busch family, and there is so much. I'm going to start with the founder, Adolphus Busch, and a little information I got off the internet searching. He was born July 10th, 1839, and died October 10th, 1913. Co-founder of Anheuser-Busch with father-in-law Eberhard Anheuser. He was born to Ulrich and Barbara Pfeiffer Busch in Mainz, Germany. He was the 21st of 22 children. At 18, in 1857, he immigrated to St. Louis in that year with 3 of his older brothers. His brother Johann established a brewery in Washington, Missouri. Ulrich Jr. married a daughter of Eberhard Anheuser in St. Louis and settled in Chicago, and Anton was a hop stealer who later returned to Mainz. His first job in St. Louis was working as a clerk in the commission house. He was also an employee at William Heinrich Schofen's warehouse wholesale company. During the American Civil War, Busch served in the Union Army for 6 months. During this period, he learned that his father had died and he had inherited a portion of the estate. He partnered with Ernst Battenberg in St. Louis to found the first of his businesses, a brewing supply company that sold to the 36 breweries in the city. Eberhard Anheuser was one of Adolphus's customers. Anheuser was a soap manufacturer that lent money to the Bavarian brewery. When the small brewery went bankrupt, Anheuser bought out the other creditors and renamed the company Anheuser. Adolphus married Eberhard's daughter Lily in 1861. Returning to St. Louis after the Civil War, Busch entered his family's brewery business. He bought out Eberhard's partner, William Diodich. In 1879, the company was renamed Anheuser-Busch. At the death of Eberhard Anheuser in 1880, Busch became president of the business. He became wealthy and financially independent due to the success of the Anheuser brewery. He envisioned a national beer with universal appeal. His work was distinguished by his timely adoption of the important scientific and technological innovations and an expansive sales strategy geared largely toward eternal domestic and international population centers, and a pioneering integrated marketing plan that focused on a single core brand, Budweiser making it the most successful nationally distributed beer of the pre-Prohibition era. To build Budweiser as a national beer, he created a network of railside ice houses and launched the industry's first fleet of refrigerated freight cars. However, throughout his life, he referred to his beer as that slop and preferred to drink wine. Kind of interesting. He didn't seem to really like the taste of the beer himself. When Busch implemented pasteurization as a way to keep the beer fresh for longer periods of time, his company was able to profit from shipping beer across the country. He was an early adopter of bottled beer and founded the Busch Glass Company to make bottles for his product. In 1901, sales surpassed the 1 million barrels, a beer benchmark. In addition to pasteurization and refrigeration, he was an early adopter of vertical integration, or buying all components of a business. He bought bottling factories, ice manufacturing plants, stave makers, timberland, coal mines, and a refrigeration company. He also bought railways and bought rights from Rudolf Diesel to assemble diesel engines in America. His focus on the business extended to the flavor of the beer itself. Carl Conrad held the trademark for the name Budweiser and had Anheuser-Busch manufacture it for him. Conrad was an importer of wines and champagnes. Busch studied the Pilsner process in Europe, which was used for brewing Budweiser. Adolphus bought the rights to Budweiser from Conrad in October 1882, when Conrad went bankrupt. Busch served as president of the Southside Bank and the Manufacturers Railway. He had helped organize the latter as a short line rail serving local industry. He was also director of the Louisiana Purchase Company. Like other business leaders, he served as a director of the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, contributing to civic efforts. Busch invested in new buildings and businesses in Dallas, Texas, which was growing rapidly in the early 20th century as an industrial city. In 1912, Busch constructed the Adolphus Hotel there as the largest building in the state. Another was the Busch Building, which has been adapted as the Kirby Residences and is located at 1509 Main Street. It is a National Historic Landmark. Adolphus Busch realized that being one of 21 children, he wasn't going to inherit much from his father, even though his family was wealthy. So he knew he was going to have to make the money on his own. So that's what made him so ambitious in this venture. From his early years, he contributed generously to charitable and education needs. With a lifelong interest in his homeland, he assisted in repairing devastation from the 1882 flooding of Castile Mines by the Rhine River. He donated $100,000 to San Francisco after the 1906 earthquake, $50,000 personally, and $550,000 from his company. He contributed a total of $350,000 to Harvard to endow a Germanic museum named Adolphus Busch Hall. He married Elise Lily Eberhard Anheuser, the third daughter of Eberhard Anheuser, on March 7, 1861 in St. Louis. They had 13 children, 8 sons, including Adolphus Busch II, August Anheuser Busch I, and Carl Busch, and 5 daughters. The Busches often traveled to Germany, where they bought a castle. They named it Villa Lily for Mrs. Busch. It was located in Linscheid in the present-day Bad Schwalbach. He died in Linscheid in 1913 while on vacation. He had been suffering illness since 1906. He was survived by his widow, 5 daughters, and 2 sons, August A. and Carl Busch, both of them of St. Louis. Body was brought back to the United States in 1915 by ship and transported by train to St. Louis. Almost 30,000 people paid their respects to Adolphus Busch, when his body lay in the family mansion in St. Louis. Notable guests include the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, President of Harvard University, President of the University of California. 25 trucks were needed to transport all the flower arrangements to the cemetery, and a 250-piece band led the funeral procession. The procession spanned 20 miles from number 1 Busch Place to Bellefontaine Cemetery, Adolphus's final resting place. As many as 100,000 mourners lined the streets for the procession. 5 minutes of silence was observed at the request of Mayor Henry W. Keel, and the lights were turned off at the Jefferson and Planters House Hotel. Streetcars also halted. Lily Anheuser's parents had built a mausoleum at Bellefontaine Cemetery, but she felt that Adolphus needed something grander. She tore down the original structure and had the other family members reinterred outside. Completed in 1921, Thomas Barnett designed the new mausoleum in a Bavarian Gothic style. New building cost $250,000, which is equated to about $10 million in 2005. It was constructed into stone quarried in Missouri and features grapevines representing Adolphus's birthplace in German wine country, and his favorite beverage, Julius Caesar's words, Vini, Vidi, Vici, or I came, I saw, I conquered, are inscribed on the lintel. Lily died of a heart attack and pneumonia on February 17, 1928 in Pasadena, California. Her body was brought back to St. Louis, where it is now buried beside her husband. Interesting story about the Busch family, how that business got started. And next time I'm going to be talking about August Busch Sr. and about his life, and that will be the next show. And as always, thanks for watching.